Hey everybody, DeCrescent here. Welcome back to the channel. We've got several interesting things to look at today. We've got some craftable items, we've got some custom arrows, some unique enchantments, and some custom spells. A lot of interesting things to look at. Oops, sorry about that. First, we need a forge. And it's fortunate enough, we've got one right here in Emberwood Bar. So, have you ever gotten a hold of a Dragon Priest mask and thought, man, I like this one, but I wear light armor and it's heavy armor? Or maybe you've got one and said, well, I like this enchantment, but that other enchantment does me no good. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get a Dragon Priest mask that was unenchanted and it was, light or heavy, whichever one you needed? Well, I decided to go ahead and do that. These are craftable Dragon Priest masks. Light armor version, heavy armor version. Now, so far, I just have this one. But you can see, there it is. And they're unenchanted. So really all I was doing is making the crafting recipes for these. So there's a light armor version, heavy armor version, they're unenchanted. And I'll add the other ones in over the next few days. So I just thought it might be kind of nice to have something. It seems like a lot of them are heavy armor. And if you're going to be playing light armor, they don't do you any good. And some of them actually have decent enchantments. But, So now you can make your own. If you want to use them, well, at least I can. I mean, I have to put that in some kind of mod and upload it somewhere. But okay. Anyway, let's go. Let's talk about the Dark Brotherhood now. So one of the great things about the Dark Brotherhood is when you join that, you get those fabulous gloves, those Dark Brotherhood gauntlets with that double backstab enchantment on them. Problem with that is, you can't disenchant those. So if you want that enchantment, you have to wear those gloves. And, that armor is kind of meh. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to put that enchantment on your own armor? Well, let's see. Look at this. Backstab gauntlets. So I've got some Sigil gloves here. Grand Soul Gem. Oh, now it's not working. It worked the other day. Okay. Let me check something. Okay, I can put it on that. Well, why can't I put it? Oh, it's because those are... I guess it's because those gloves are... I thought those gloves were light armor for some reason. It's set to be able to be applied to armor, and those are that's clothing. So, there you go. And for a minute there, I was like, what the heck? I used this the other day. But there we go. Double sneak attack damage with one-handed weapons. So I had to create a custom set of gauntlets and a custom enchantment, which is basically duplicating what's in game and then applying that enchantment to those gloves, and now you can disenchant it and enchant your own light or heavy armor, not clothing. I'll have to take a look at that. I would like to have that option available for clothing, but we're going to put this to the test here in a little bit and make sure this thing works. But before we do that, there's one other thing we need to make here at the Forge. Now, if you play the game and you've used alchemy, you know that you cannot poison vampires. And likewise, you cannot poison Draugr. You cannot poison the undead. And I thought, yeah, I don't know about that. What if there was something that was not a poison that would have a similar effect? So I thought, you know what? What about a flesh-eating bacteria? Are they immune to bacteria? I mean, when you put a dead body in the ground, it deteriorates, right? Bacteria eats away at it. So why can't we use a bacteria on the undead. Well, now we can. Necrotic Arrows. As you can see, it is imbued with a flesh-eating bacteria which deals 10 points of damage to health per second for 10 seconds and affects the undead only. Now you don't want to shoot this at the living because you'll be wasting the bacteria, as I'm calling it, and all you're going to do is aggro, because it is an arrow, it is still a hostile act, so you don't want to waste this on the living. But here's what the story I came up to make this work. The reason this is made at the forge and not at the alchemy lab, so it's not like a bacteria you apply to a weapon, is in order to do that I have to do one of two things, and that's either create some ingredients that don't exist, or I have to take some existing ingredients and remove some of their effects and apply this effect. And I didn't want to do that because that could mess up some other really good potions or poisons. So instead we make it at the forge. Now you still need ingredients to make it, but you only need to have the proper materials in your inventory. And to make these, you can see down at the bottom, you need a silver ingot, firewood, torchbug thorax, falmer ear, bone meal, and Nordic barnacle. That's quite a laundry list of stuff there. But here is my rationale for that. If there is such a thing as a flesh-eating bacteria, it's possible that it's living in the Nordic barnacle. That's why that's included, right? So even though the Nordic barnacle, there's a living organism inside that little shell, the barnacle shells. So if this eats on the flesh of the bacteria, why is it in there? It's just there. It's dormant. It's not doing anything. It's just there. The reason I included the torchbug thorax is because they released some kind of I don't know. Oh, I forgot the word. Well, there's some kind of a chemical reaction that goes on with those torchbug thorax that causes that glowing effect, and it's that reaction that kind of wakes up the bacteria. And now since it's awake, it's looking for something to eat. Now it's not going to eat the barnacle because that's living. It's just residing there, but it's looking for some flesh of the dead to start eating now that it's been woken up. So that's what the falmer ear and the bone meal is for, because those two ingredients combined kind of simulate the flesh of the dead. So now it's starting to feed, and it wants more. It's still hungry. Well, we're going to go give it something to eat. Let's take a little trip. Alright, so we are standing outside the entrance to Movarth's lair, just a little bit northeast of Morthal. Now, if you have that quest in Morthal active, Movarth, the Master Vampire, will be in here. If you don't have that quest active, it'll be a Master Vampire. So, let's go deal with this thing. First of all, I think we have some spiders we need to get rid of. Alright, let me see what the difficulty setting is. I want this to be on Adept for now. Not Legendary, okay. Let's put this on Adept. It will better illustrate what it is I'm trying to do here. Alright, before we proceed, since I'm a level 1, and our sneak skill is terrible, we're going to remove everything, because we have a vampire's thrall up here. So we're gonna put our thing to the test here. Oops. Our thing. We're gonna test out our double backstab enchantment. First, we're gonna do it without. There's another thrall close by. So let's see what happens with this guy. That took about half his health. And there should be another one in here. Alright, now let's grab our enchanted gauntlets.
Well, seems like you have a bit of gold left in your pockets, don't you, my friend?
This is a little bit slow, but again, I'm a level 1. If I move too fast, they're going to hear me.
Let me just take this coin purse off your hands for you. And those nice boots you've got there. Now, you just stay here with all your friends, and I'm gonna go get my shovel.
This is painfully slow, isn't it? But again, it's probably the only way I can do this without getting caught. And we need to make sure we can do a backstab on this guy, so we want to see if the damage is different. Because I'm kind of thinking we're going to be able to one-shot this guy. Now, he's probably a level 1 like I am. And sure enough it did. Sneak attack, 3 times damage. So our enchantment is working. Perfect. Now, since we were just dealing with some thralls, let's talk about thralls for a minute. One thing you almost always have to deal with whenever you're taking on vampires is that they have thralls, and they're usually quite strong. And I always thought, man, I wish there was a way I could make that thrall not a thrall, you know? And I have a script that I think if I make some changes to it might do that. And the reason I say that is because every actor in the game belongs to one or more factions. So these thralls here, they belong to the vampire faction and the bandit faction. Now if you had a script that would remove the vampire faction from their faction list, then they just become an ordinary bandit. Which means, if you know anything about bandits, they attack anything and everything that's not also in the bandit faction. So chaos would ensue. But I don't know much about scripts, and I'm not sure what I would have to do to that one I have to make it work. However, I do have a spell here called Unthrall. Now, right now, you can kind of ignore the cost and the spell level. This is, I've not fine-tuned it yet, but let's see if this works, because this is going to simulate taking the vampire faction out of the Thrall's faction list. And you can always spot the Thrall because they're wearing bandit armor, whereas the vampires are wearing vampire armor, and that looks like our guy right there. Let's wait, he's going to sit down. Let's see if we can nail him. Alright, I'm not sure that got him. Nope, we missed. I think I hit the chair. Alright, let's give him a few seconds here to settle down and we'll try again. That sucks, you know. I came in here and I tested this several times and I hit him on the first try every time. It's like, start recording, and now it's just, yeah, well. Alright, let's see if we can find this cat. He's still in the same place. Okay. That got him. Now, they should start fighting immediately. Well, he didn't last long. Vampire killed him immediately and then raised him. So it didn't last long, but we did temporarily unthrall him.
First kill is always the best.
Now I realize you can use a Fury spell or a Frenzy spell for this. But when you get up to the higher levels, 40, 45, 50, you're going to be encountering some very high level thralls. And those spells, unless you put a lot of perks into illusion, they're not going to work. This one will. It'll work on pretty much any thrall. And all we're trying to do here is just get the odds a little more in our favor by making them all fight each other. So I talked about the Necrotic Arrows. Not Necrotic Arrows, although I do like the sound of that. No, these are Necrotic Arrows, and these will affect the undead. And that looks like a vampire right there. Let's see if I can nail him. Watch his health bar. No, it didn't take. Oh, well, this is great. I'll explain why sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. It has to do with the
Mine's playing tricks on me.
The range this thing works. I'll explain in a second. You see that one got dropped immediately, and somebody's raising it. Since that's a vampire, now you can see his health bar.
Now you die. I'll drink you dry, mortal.
If you say so. Where'd he go? Okay, watch that one. Now that one's gone. See his health bar.
You're mine, mortal.
Now, master vampires come in different, oh, just a little bit short. Oh, I just didn't quite have enough.
Death is nothing to me.
You're a thrall. Where's the vampire? That's who I want.
Never should have come here.
Alright, I don't know if this is going to work on this guy. I mean, it'll work on him, but he's still going to attack me because I'm the only thing here. Oh, he's here somewhere. I hear him. How'd you get in there? Alright, you know what we gotta do? Let's see.
What was that?
Spell wore off. Killed by a naked Nord. Well, anyway, this is, this should demonstrate what the arrows can do. It acts like, well, it's, the reason they're made at the forge, well, I already kind of explained that, but when you make them at the forge, it's actually technically an enchanted arrow. So if you see, I think most of those mods that have enchanted arrows that do fire, frost, shock damage, you make them at the forge. So you don't make them at the enchanting table. So they're, even though this one's doing damage to their health, it's technically an enchanted arrow. Well, I mean, everything in the game pretty much is an enchantment, is a magic effect of some type. Okay, we have one more thing to look at. Oh, I was going to describe why that may not have worked the first time. When you make these enchanted arrows, you have to. There's a number of things you have to create. You have to create a custom explosion. You have to create a custom magic effect, a custom projectile. It's a number of things, and then you have to link them all together. But in the explosion or the projectile, one of those, you set the diameter of the effect, and if the diameter, and I think the diameter of the effect, I think it measures it from the ground up in units. So if you set it too small and the arrow hits the target in the head, it might not take effect. So you always want to kind of aim for the middle. And it's even possible, and I've seen it with this one, where there were two vampires next to each other, and I hit one and it affected both of them because the other one was within range, within those certain number of units. It's complicated, but most of the time if you just aim for the middle of the body, you're fine. But there is that possibility that it's going to affect anything next to it, or if you hit them too high, it might not get it at all. Because I think that person, the average person in Skyrim's like 120 some units. So anyway, there is one more thing to look at. I've talked about a Let's Play coming up that I'm going to be starting, and I want to play as a Dark Elf. Because I never played as a Dunmer before, I don't believe, at least not in Skyrim. If I did, it was very, very brief. So I want to play as a Dark Elf. But normally when I'm going to start a playthrough, and I go to decide what race to use, I want to look at their greater power and their passive bonus, their passive ability. I don't look at their starting skills too much because to me that doesn't really matter, for the simple fact that any race can get any skill to 100. It's nice if they have, you know, a higher starting skill. That's something that you want to use. That's helpful, but it's certainly not essential. To me, the greater power and the passive are the two things that really matter. Now, some races will have a really great greater power, a really good greater power, and a weak passive, such as, well, the Argonians, for example. Their greater power, the Hiskin, they heal at like 10 times normal rate for a minute. That's pretty significant. That'll keep you alive in some sticky situations. Their passive ability is water breathing. It's like, okay, I mean, how many times is that going to be really, are you going to be like, oh man, thank God I have water breathing? I mean, you can carry a potion or two, do the same thing. Some races will have a good greater power and a good passive ability. The Bretons, for example, dragon skin, spell absorption, and 25% magic resistance. Both very, very powerful, very helpful, very useful for pretty much any build type, especially the magic resistance. The High Elves, the Altmer, their greater power is the 25 times magic regen, which is insanely fast. It means you can almost cast spells indefinitely. Well, not indefinitely, but I mean continuously for a full minute. And their passive, straight up 50 points extra magicka, which is huge, especially early in the game, because that's 50% higher than anybody else. And then some will have a really poor greater power, but a really good passive ability, and that's where the Dark Elves are. Their passive ability is 50% resistance to fire. Okay, that's great. I can totally get behind that. That's awesome, especially if you play as a vampire. It totally neutralizes their weakness to fire. But their greater power is the Flame Cloak. Well, it's called Ancestor's Wrath, but it's just a Flame Cloak. I go in a creation kit and I look at the Flame Cloak and I look at the Dunmer's greater power. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. I'm thinking, how weak is that? Anybody playing any race can go to any court wizard and buy a Flame Cloak spell. Yes, I know with the greater power it doesn't cost any magicka, but you can only use that once per day. You buy the spell, you can use it as many times as you want. So that greater power is not powerful, and it's certainly not unique. It's really disappointing. So I decided that I'm going to make a custom greater power. We're going to go outside and take a look at it because it's kind of dark in here. Alright, we're just outside of Movarth's lair. I am going to use the console to bring up some bandits, and then we're going to watch the fun, and then I will describe what all is happening with this.
Is someone there? Time to end over this. Here.
Now, just watch their, it doesn't always get them. See, this guy's, this guy didn't get hit with it for some reason. But you watch their health bars. Now, these are low-level bandits. They're level 5s. But you can see it will set them on fire.
Is someone there?
We get a nice explosion. It will set them on fire, and they will continue to burn, and they will continue to take fire damage. Now, they're the same level and have the same health, so these guys are all drop dead at the same time. And normally you're not going to have that, but it's kind of funny. And their corpses are going to continue to burn for a while. Alright, now, let me fast forward a little bit here. There's something else that happens here. Well, first of all, we have the nice explosion that you saw. That I borrowed from the master level destruction spell for fire. Just the explosion, though. The only thing I added to the explosion was a little bit of a push effect, so they get staggered from that. Because, I mean, explosion that big, you should get staggered a little bit. And even if I do it now, it'll knock some stuff around. Okay, the next thing that happens, there's 3 effects that happen here. So the next one is the damage over time. The explosion is one effect that's within this spell. And then there's the damage over time that you saw their health meters were dropping down. That's the second effect, and it does 10 points, no, excuse me, it does 5 points of damage per second for 60 seconds. So that's 300 points of damage, and I realize that sounds like a lot, and early in the game it is. It's a little uber powerful, but when you put that up against something like a Drug or Death Lord that's got like 1400 health, it's not that much. And then if you factor in difficulty settings, this is Adept, if you put it on a higher difficulty settings, it's not going to be doing that much damage. So I think over the long term, from early game to late game, I think it's fairly well balanced. But there is a third component to this. So let's take a look at something here. First of all, let's look at some of these destruction spells. And pay attention to this number and this number. It's the same, and it should be. Fireball is 40 points of damage. Firebolt is 25. Flames is 8. Flame Cloak doesn't change for some reason, but Flames is 8. Incinerate is 60. Now we fire this off again. Fireball, it still says 40 up here, but down here, it's 60. Firebolt, 25. Now it's doing 37. Flames, 8 points. Now it's doing 12. Incinerate was 60. Now it's doing 90. And it's the same with Frost and Shock spells. It will boost all of these. The Icy Spear went from 60 to 90. It will boost all your destruction spells damage by 50%. It doesn't make them 50% cheaper to. It doesn't reduce the cast cost. It actually makes your spells 50% more powerful. But again, for the whole minute. And that bleed over time damage will stack, but you'd have to repeatedly cast this. And because it actually is a power listed right here, it's only a once a day. You can only use this once a day. I can use it repeatedly because I toggled God mode.
Is someone there? End this little game.
You can see they stagger a little bit. And they're all set on fire. So I figure it's pretty powerful. You get a 50% boost in damage to your destruction spells. You got that nice explosion, which is... The explosion and the push is just that. It's just a visual. It doesn't do any damage. The damage is the second component of this spell. Like I said, there's 3 effects in there. The explosion and the push is one effect. The next magic effect is the actual damage that it does. And the third effect is the fortified destruction spells. So that is, and I'm calling that right now Curse of Red Mountain. Because, well, you know, the Dunmer, they start with a higher level destruction skill, I think. In the game, they've got a flame cloak. They come from Morrowind, which has Vardenfell, which has Red Mountain, you know, volcano, lava, fire resistance. So I figure I'd do something fire related. So I'm calling it the Curse of Red Mountain. But that is the custom. This spell took me like 3 days to get it to work right. It was really, really, really a pain. I won't go in on the details. Just trust me, that was really a pain. And it wasn't until a couple hours ago that I was like, finally! I had everything working, but the fortified destruction just wouldn't work. And I finally figured out how to get it to work. So, yeah, I'm pleased that I finally got that to work. Let's see. I need a good thumbnail for this video. How about a nice picture of Movar's lair? There we go. Or we could bring up, let's see, how about 10 of these idiots and set them all on fire?
What's that? Time to end this. Curse you!
Idiots on fire.
What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? Rip you at sea.
And there we go. Quick little cleanup. Alright, so there we go. That is the custom Dark Elf Greater Power. Well, actually, it can be used by any race, but I got it for my next playthrough. I think that is powerful and unique, and it's a greater power worthy of being called a greater power. But that's just my opinion. So, anyway, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I should have another video coming up soon. I've been doing a little bit of work on the Conjuration mod. I made a few little changes. Added some things and moved some things around. So, and so far their testing has been very good. So, we'll get a look at that fairly soon. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, and I will see you in the next video.